I don't think I do that. I think I just read it, right?
Oh,
I meant to. Okay, that's good.
Gary, can you turn it on? Thanks. Yeah, he's got it. So we have the one. Yours is on, is it? No, it isn't. Not yet. Okay.
Okay. I'd like to call this meeting to order. Would you please stand with me and recite this Pledge of Allegiance? I
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you all for coming out tonight on such a wet evening. The first item on business that we're going to do is we're going to have a certificate of appreciation. So I'll turn the meeting over to Commissioner Moore at this time.
I thank you, and I believe Mark Ziegler, there he is, had some words to say first.
Absolutely. I'm going to have Eamon Anderson join me up here. I have the pleasure of introducing Eamon tonight. Eamon recently completed his Eagle Scout project, working with the city and the Parks Department. Eamon organized a group of, I think it was around 35, close to 40 people. Got donations of materials and equipment to do some maintenance up at the Huff and Puff Trail. They maintained some of the parking lot, spread some gravel, filled in some of the potholes that can become big craters up there, removed some invasive species. We had some scotch broom and other things up there, picked up some garbage and did some trail maintenance. They completed all this on September 7th, is that right? Yeah, completed all this on September 7th, did a great job, looks much better up there, and it's really a pleasure to introduce him and to the commission and to the community on what the efforts that he's made. And I know Commissioner Moore has a certificate to present you and recognize you for your achievement. We really want to take this opportunity to thank you and congratulate you on your soon-to-be rank of Eagle Scout, right?
Yep.
All right. So you want to...
Okay, it looks like you brought a cheering squad with you as well. So I think everybody who's familiar at all with scouting knows that it's a big effort to get the Eagle Scout ranking, and so congratulations to you. I'm going to read this. The City of Shelton, Washington presents this certificate of appreciation to Eamon Anderson for your efforts in organizing and completing a project to remove invasive plants, clean up litter and debris, and perform maintenance on the Huff and Puff parking lot. Eamon's efforts are a direct result of the quality individuals that the Boy Scouts produce. The rank of Eagle Scout shows your dedication to community, scouting principles, and leadership, all skills that provide great value throughout life. So, congratulations. Okay. Come on over here and get the whole crew in. So, and I learned how to do this. You do that and you do that. Congratulations. Thank you. I did this. Is that it?
I'd like to add a little bit to that. I too was an Eagle Scout a couple of years ago, and the part that's missing on the certificate of appreciation is to the family, because I remember when I got mine, it's a huge family effort to bring a kid up in this day and age, and to achieve the rank of Eagle is a big deal. It's the first thing you do in your life that's really an accomplishment. If it wasn't for your family, your grandparents, your mom and your dad, brothers, sisters, you wouldn't be able to do it. So the family needs to be recognized for this too greatly, and I really think you're doing a great thing. So congratulations.
His brother did the same thing 6 years ago.
All right, good
Wow,
job.
congratulations.
How old were you?
I was 16 when I did my Eagle Scout project. I did the same exact thing.
How old's your brother?
You're
14?
Wow.
Wow, I got mine at 15. I was the first one in my area, so that's pretty good. You really worked hard.
He's the third brother to be getting into Eagle.
Excellent.
That's wonderful.
that's cool.
Congratulations,
Yeah.
parents.
All right. Thank you, Mark. Next is a presentation that we are going to have concerning the Forest Festival Annual Report. And I'm not going to mispronounce his name, so I'm going to my friend Mike is going to speak to us tonight. So,
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Commissioners, Mike Sprowski, Mason County Forest Festival. As a representative of Mason County Forest Festival, I want to thank you for your support you have given us. This type of festival would not be possible without the aid of our community, without our city and county lodging tax funds. We would not be able to hold this event. The 2015 Forest Festival was our 71st annual. As you know, we held the Still Western Regional Qualifier for a second year in a row. This was a huge success that again brought national attention to Shelton and Mason County. I know I said this last year, but I want to repeat it again because we heard the same thing from a new set of competitors and a new national staff for Steel Timber Sports. Many of the people involved with the Steel event compete or assist in these competitions around the country and around the world. We received many compliments on the show this year from these folks that Mason County Forest Festival is one of the best organized logging show competitions in the country. We also heard that from one of the competitors that it was the best he has seen in the country and one of the best in the world in his time competing. He attributed that to the setting at Loop Field, the organization and support for the event from Forest Festival and the community, and the amount of spectators at the event. This gentleman is a veteran competitor and a former Still Timber Sports competitor board member. He's competed around the world, and the biggest thing that stands out to these folks is the number of spectators. The folks. Logging sports didn't start in Mason County, but it's really close. So we get a lot of support there. So moving along, this year's Forest Festival events were well attended. Forest Festival began with the carnival on Thursday, May 28th. The weather was great this year, which brought a good turnout for the carnival. Saturday morning began with the firefighters' pancake breakfast and the Goldsboro Creek Fun Run and Walk. Both events were well attended. The Family Pets Parade and the Paul Bunyan Grand Parade saw great crowds. Railroad Avenue and Franklin Street were lined with spectators with an estimated attendance of just under 13,000 spectators. For this year's logging show, we had 10 contestants that qualified at previous regional competitions. The contestants competed in 6 events with the top 4 qualifying for nationals in Central Park, New York. 4 of the 10 competitors were from Washington, 3 from Oregon, 2 from California, and 1 from West Virginia. Matt Koger from Diana, West Virginia was the two-time, coming into this competition, was the two-time defending national U.S. champion. He finished first at the Western Qualifier here in Shelton. In June, he successfully defended his title, winning the 2015 U.S. Championship at Central Park. And I wanted to point out 3 of the 4 competitors that competed here moved on to the finals. And I know 2 of those are probably competed within this last week, and I was unable to follow it, but at the World Competitions in Poland. The evening closed out with a spectacular grand fireworks display sponsored by Mankey Lumber. On Sunday, the Shelton Car Show-Off had the most car entries the current organizers had ever dealt with. Again, this event had huge crowds, largely due to the beautiful weather we had that weekend. Every event was well attended. We estimated that 12,912 people attended. Of the 12,912 people, we estimated that approximately 1,604 traveled from out of county and 32 from out of state. It is estimated that 252 hotel room stays were attributed to the Mason County Forest Festival. These estimates are based on logs from committee chairs, ticket counts for the events that charged an entry, and the raffle ticket sales logs. Because the logging show and parade are free events and held in large open spaces, we used counts of people in a smaller space and then multiplied that. Forest Festival spent over $38,000 total on the 2015 year. The $6,000 in lodging tax funds were spent on operations and advertising. The operations costs were $5,000 for the Olympic Lumberjack Productions for the coordination and management of the logging show. And the advertising costs were for advertising with KMAS Radio and the Shopper. The Mason County Forest Festival Float and Royalty attended the Squim Irrigation Festival, Rhododendron Festival, Port Orchard Fathoms of Fun, the McClary Bear Festival, Lake Fair in Olympia, Sea Fair in Seattle, and the Christmas Town Kiwanis Parade. Float and Royalty placed in each of these parades. The highlight of the year for the Float and Royalty was taking second place at the Sea Fair Parade. What an outstanding accomplishment, as Sea Fair is the granddaddy of parades in Washington. 2015 Mason County Forest Festival was a very successful and exciting event. We are looking forward to 2016. We are scheduled to host the Steel Timber Sports Western Regional Qualifier again this year for the 2016 logging show. Next year's dates our Forest Festival will be held July 2nd to 5th, 2016. Thank you again for your support.
Questions or comments?
Good job, great job. It was amazing. My aunt and uncle came up this year for the first time, and they are planning to come up again next year, and they are in their 80s, so we're
Nice.
hoping that they are able to make it up. I just wanted to point out that it's June 2nd to 5th, I think. He said July.
Oh, I'm sorry, yes.
We want to make
Yes.
sure people know.
June 2nd to 5th, I'm
That's
sorry.
one of my tricks. That's why
Yep.
I listen for other people. But thank you so much for the report.
You're welcome, thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much, and again, for your volunteer to this great activity that has gone on. It's basically, I remember coming when I was a little kid, and I didn't even I was from Port Orchard. I mean, so it's, and the Paul Bunyan and just the whole experience. So thank you for your volunteer work there.
You're welcome, thank you.
All right, moving right along, we have our weekly commission reports, and so Commissioner Moore.
Okay. This morning, I had a long conversation with Artifacts Engineering out of Tacoma. They do professional assessments of historic buildings, and they have been retained by Simpson to do a feasibility study on our roundhouse and present us with a number of different options. So I talked with Mary Thompson. She's an old friend, so it was good to touch base with her. She's familiar with the project, and we'll get some answers and more questions at the end of this feasibility study. And I would like to publicly thank Simpson for funding this. Tomorrow, I have a League of Women Voters meeting. On Thursday, I will be attending the Community Recreation Committee's report of the recent survey that was around for recreation needs in our county. I also will be attending a fiscal sponsorship Washington nonprofit webinar for the Housing Coalition. And I also will be touring ITT Rainier Building with Chad Seward, who is looking at that building for a new business in town. On Friday, I have a PRTPO meeting in Kitsap County. That's always a good time, getting together with other representatives from our surrounding counties. And PRTPO is Peninsula Regional Transportation Planning Organization. So that's it for this week.
Commissioner Olson.
Tuesday is Basin Transit Authority Board meeting. And then I think Wednesday I'll be meeting with a couple of citizens who requested to meet with me in our North Sheltonville Historic District concerning the placement of a porta potty by the SPAT group. So that's my week currently. And then Thursday, I believe I'll have a meeting also with the city attorney in Dave O'Leary. So that's it.
And this week, on Wednesday, I'll be attending a Criminal Justice Board meeting. On Wednesday, I will be attending the Chamber of Commerce after hours at the Colonial House. On Friday, I will be meeting with Maya Bellin, the Director of the Department of Ecology, and Senator Tim Sheldon to talk about funding options for Basin 3. And on Saturday, I'll probably be doing something else. So I think that completes our weekly commission reports. And next on the agenda is an opportunity for general public comment. If anyone would like to speak about something, this is an opportunity. We just need you to sign in on the end of the table there. Is there anybody signed in? There's an opportunity later in the meeting if you want to talk about something also. But at this point, are we ready for reading of our consent agenda?
Yes.
Okay. So, Leslie Ann, could we please have a reading of the consent agenda?
Consent agenda, vouchers numbered 10159 through 10265 in the amount of $265,437.60. Payroll warrants numbered 1046 through 1091 and 1190 through 1288 and 10135 through 10158 in the amount of $681,042.81. Commission meeting minutes from business meeting of November 2nd, 2015, and the Transportation Benefit District meeting of November 9th, 2015. Ordinance number 1877-1115, second reading. An ordinance of the City of Shelton, Washington, declaring a substantial need for increasing ad valorem taxes in the City of Shelton for the calendar year 2016. Ordinance number 1878-1115, second reading. An ordinance of the City of Shelton, Washington, increasing ad valorem taxes in the City of Shelton for the calendar year 2016. 2016 levy certification. Public defense grant funding, authorizing the mayor to sign. Stop Violence Against Women formula grant, authorize the mayor to sign. Water system modeling, Corello Engineering, authorize the mayor to sign and the city administrator to make any necessary budget modifications.
Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda as read?
So moved.
I second that motion.
There's a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? The consent agenda passes. Yes, Mr. O'Leary.
Just wanted to note, maybe for the record, that Leslie Ann has been reading these consent agendas for years,
Yes.
and she's retiring, and this is her last one.
Oh, my goodness.
So-
Well, my last nighttime one. I have a couple more daytime.
Couple more days.
So, at any rate, we just passed a milestone. I wanted to make sure that everyone,
Thank you.
Absolutely. And
Without a mistake.
Well,
Many.
not always.
I've never heard.
I would just like to say that for the 4 years I've been here, Leslie Ann's been a pleasure to work with, and we are going to miss her greatly. I'm hoping that she will come by and say hi once in a while when we have our public works picnics or something. But anyway, she is a class act in my book, and we will miss her greatly. Yes.
Just wanted to mention that December 1st is her last day, and the last meeting she's going to be covering for the commission is on November 30th. And after our commission meeting, we are going to have a reception with cake, and the public is invited to come and wish Leslie well in her new
Ventures.
life, retirement.
Venture, it's called venture.
My- Yeah, A life.
life, yeah.
Anyway, November 30th, after the commission meeting, everyone's invited to come and share some cake and refreshments.
All right, thank you very much. Okay, moving on, there is no old business, no new business, and so is there administration report?
You have a report from City Engineer Mike Michael.
Okay,
Thanks, Dave. Commissioners. At last week's meeting, Commissioner Moore asked for a little bit more information on some potential cost savings on the Lake Boulevard sewer extension that kind of were brainstormed with staff. In particular, one that had been mentioned to her at a previous meeting was the concept of getting the pipe in the ground but leaving the structures off as a potential cost savings moving forward on this. So this morning I completed looking at some analysis on that. The structures alone in the section of work that is not mandatory for the road work, and as you remember, there's about $80,000 of the $480,000 bid price that is required because of stormwater encroachments. So we're really talking about $408,000 from approximately 2nd Street West. In that area, taking all of the structures, including the cleanouts on the end of the laterals out, basically just putting the pipe under the new pavement, would save us slightly under $80,000 with a reasonable assumption of what the administrative costs would be. In looking at that, that wasn't a very significant savings compared to the project and the impacts on operation of those pipelines in the future. So I also looked at some other alternatives. In particular, there are approximately 300-foot segments at the very west end of the project that cover the Beverly Heights development, essentially. And some level of those could potentially be dropped off if it was the commission's decision. The first segment moves you to approximately the unopened Alaska right-of-way. The second segment gets you about halfway between there and California, and the third segment would stop the improvements at the California right-of-way. That position was chosen because of the previous information we got on potentially failing septic systems. That was the point where you still could get a reasonable capture of those into the future and be able to get those failing septic systems out and the properties on sewer. Roughly speaking, each segment's in the neighborhood of $40,000. The first one a little bit under because it's shorter. That one was approximately $35,000. Second segment was about $40,000. Third segment about $45,000. In looking at the potential savings relative to expected return on that investment of the sewer utility, staff is still recommending that we continue with the installation as originally bid in the Lake Boulevard project and moving forward there. We still see that the septic systems are a big benefit out there and would expect to have a number of those connected within the next 3 to 5 year period just because of their age.
questions or comments, I guess?
Mike, when you say pipe only, it means you leave out the manholes and the side sewers?
Not the side sewers, just the cleanouts on the end. Instead of putting a cleanout and a marker board like is typical under our standards, the idea there was to save the price of the casting. It's about $350, but not put the cleanout there and just put a board to mark where the end of that lateral was off the edge of the pavement. But basically get all the pipe in the ground under the new asphalt.
And then later on, you'd have to go back in and if you got a cost associated with that versus $80,000 savings now, what's it gonna cost us later to redo that?
That's a hard one to really guess at this time. It's really driven by the cost of structures in the future, our ability to do it, or do we have to hire a contractor to put those in?
Is it something simple, like you just drill a hole? I mean, it can't quite be like that, can you? You gotta dig a pretty good hole, don't you, to put a 3-foot manhole?
Some of them would be, some of them could be that simple. Some of the shallower ones, you probably could get away with like about a 4x4 pavement cut, just large enough to get a manhole box in the ground and install the manhole over the pipes with a type of manhole that's available to us. You're probably looking at spending that $80,000 or even a little bit more over time, as you do have to install those manholes anyhow.
Well, I guess my comments on this situation is that as the last commission meeting, we talked about kind of where I'd heard varying reports about whether we could financially do this and things like that. And so I guess I'm still a little bit confused on whether or not, in talking to the city administrator and Kathy Byerly, exactly if we can afford to do this at all. And I have actually said, because of our debt and et cetera, that I would just say I don't see a real immediate need out there. Septic systems, if they fail, don't they have a reserved area that they can use? I mean, whenever you fill out for a building permit, if you're on a septic system, you have a septic field, and then you have, or a drain field, then you have a reserved drain field.
That's actually a fairly new requirement within no more than the last 20 years, probably more like 10 to 15 years that's been a requirement. The age of the majority of these septic systems is well over 30, and they were generally not required to set aside space back that far back. So, and given the size of the lots, even if they had set aside space, they've probably been developed into those set aside areas, and there isn't enough for a reserve field in most of those lots.
The question would be financially, where are we? I mean, because I know I talked to Dave, I talked to Kathy, and I talked to you, and I'm just not comfortable with $420,000. I'm not, but I mean, we've already moving forward with this, so I just have to express that I don't know if there's any change. Kathy, is your statement is that we can do this? I mean, hate to bring you up out of the audience, but because last meeting we talked about it, and you said, well, yes, but if anything else happens, then we can't. So I guess I need a little bit more solid assurance on that.
Yeah, I just read you the numbers last time on what would happen. It is included in the budget right now. And so what we came up with was, well, let me start at the beginning here. In the current budget that was presented, that preliminary proposal, it's expected for $150,000 to be spent on this project, tentatively, for 2015, and $320,000 for 2016. That's the $470,000. Now, if that actually plays out that way, we would end up with, at the end of 2015, just $137,000 of cash flow. Now that's, based with the revenues as projected for this year. Next year, if the other $320,000 is spent on this project, and everything else plays out just like the budget is stating, we will have only $117,000 of cash flow remaining. So it's dipping down. This 2016 budget also has in place the rate increase. That money is budgeted in as the ordinance, as the code indicates. So that's been projected in with those rate increases, the one for 2016. So this is a low amount of cash flow for the sewer fund that has some large projects coming through it still. So typically, what was it, Mike, you were saying last week that the rate study analysis said that we should have how much in cash flow?
The policy-driven directive out of the comp plan was 2%, I want to say, approximately 200,000 for cash flow is what was being recommended. 400 is the capital reserves.
So they're lower than recommended, but what we would need to do is we would need to watch these expenses closely. And so there's no room for emergencies is the challenge here. Now, there are different reserves here, but they're restricted for certain purposes. So you have to be careful. You can't just dip into those reserves that are accumulating for the satellite project or the wastewater treatment improvements. So that's where we're at. It's a low amount of cash flow. Things need to go according to budget. Not a lot of room for any emergencies out there. So that's where we're at. Is that what you're asking?
Pretty close.
Okay.
Well, I don't know. In next year, I cannot recommend raising sewer rate on this community. So you're looking at some money from that. That is a possibility that may not happen. That would throw a real monkey wrench into this, I would think. So, I mean, I'm just saying that's kind of where I am on this. I mean, I know that I was talking to a gentleman today, very educated in city government and sewer lines and new roads, and we can all say you're putting in new pavement, you got to run that sewer line out there, but we are 56 or 55 or 57 million dollars in debt. We are trying to balance our budget next year by borrowing, I believe, was it 300,000 out of our reserves. I would have loved to bought a brand new car, but I didn't. I bought a used car, and I would just have to say that my opinion, as it was in the beginning of this whole process, that I cannot support this, especially hearing that if nothing else goes wrong, we might survive. So there's just too many irons in the fire on this one. So that's where I am tonight. And I respectfully disagree with anybody else that thinks different, but that's where I am.
I really appreciate all of the digging. I appreciate looking at the different options that we have. And in studying each of the options, I was hoping that we would come up with a magic formula where, oh, we could cut this little thing out and we can afford to do this for hundreds of thousands of dollars less. But that is not the case. And as Gary stated, that common sense tells us you do not put a new road over ground that you're going to be needing to dig up that does not have the utilities in it. And I have checked with a number of experts, and they have all said it makes no sense. It does not make fiscal sense to not put the utilities under new pavement, because we know that we will be digging it up again, and we know that we will have connections that are there, and our costs of construction only will be going up. So it is a difficult time. It is a difficult time. I wish we had more money to do it. I wish we didn't have to worry about being extremely careful and praying for no emergencies. But I feel like it would not be fiscally responsible to not go forward at this time.
One last question, Mike. Why wasn't this sewer line included in our original, when we were paving the street, why wasn't this a separate item? I mean, what, you see, it was after we had approved that this road be paved and everything, that's when I heard the conversation about finding money and running a sewer line there. Why wasn't it included in the very whole package?
Well, generally, this is work that the Transportation Improvement Board doesn't fund anyhow. And so it really came out as part of the early design process that we are putting down a lot of new pavement, and we do have this long-term need out here. It's a good time to think about it, and that was why we brought it to the commission's attention when we did, is we were still in a good point early in the design where it could be incorporated without a lot of extra design expense at that point, so.
Okay.
I've been here for 4 years, and I've paid pretty close attention ever since the wastewater treatment plant was being designed and built, and I don't remember any emergencies that on this scale would tip it over. Am I wrong on that? Is there anything that you can think of that would be a $100,000, $200,000 emergency?
We've had a
What is in
couple.
danger of
We've had a couple items with the new plants that were part of the warranty process. Those bugs have been pretty well worked out. So, yeah, could it happen?
Yeah,
Of
it's
course,
always
but
sure.
the likelihood is pretty low, in my opinion, yeah.
And, you know, as we went through this process with Lake Boulevard, you know, I spent a number of hours sitting with you and grilling you and Kathy and Greg and Dave, and, you know, nobody's answer has changed from the very beginning. They may not have been as calculated as they are now, but I haven't heard any big surprises come along that's tipped me over on any of this stuff. You know, you've been consistent with your numbers, you've been consistent with your projections. The only thing you weren't consistent on, which you had no control over, was the construction cost. And you weren't, you know, way out of the woods on that. And like you explained, it wasn't something you had any control over. And we got pretty good numbers on it, I think, for what we're doing up there. And so my mind is still set the same way. I haven't heard anything, and I was perhaps early on pretty skeptical of it as I sat down with you a number of times and was really grilling you on that stuff. And I'm convinced that it's a good project, and I would like to go forward on it, even though we're not voting on that tonight. I mean, I haven't heard anything otherwise. I'm still confident that it's a good project and that we're doing the right thing for the community. It's the last area in the UGA, I believe, in the city limits that isn't served by modern sewers, and it needs to be done. It's what we owe the citizens. Everybody should have good, healthy, and also that's what got us in trouble the first time is septic systems polluting the bay. You know, let's not go backwards.
Mr. O'Leary?
Yeah, I'm not trying to in any way decide. You got a difficult enough choice as it is, but my job, I think, is to listen to things and make sure you've got accurate information. It's been characterized as an emergency, and that I wouldn't necessarily call it like an emergency, but there are things that you must do that are surprises. For instance, we had a pump that fell over when we were doing maintenance on it, and that cost us about $80,000. So it's not out of the realm of possibility that you could have that kind of expense surprise you. So I don't know that, and again, I don't know that what it calls emergencies, but they're kind of have-to things that you must do. Otherwise, you don't have enough pumping capacity at a pump station, for instance, something like that. So our pump stations are out of warranty, either effectively or actually. So and other infrastructure. So anyway, just food for thought. Not trying to pull you, just making sure you have that information.
I have one more question for Kathy. And I think you answered this last week, but the 137 cash reserve at the end of 2015, does that carry on and be added to the 117?
No, that's just the cash flow available to be used during the year. It's just that it's been reduced. Apparently,
Okay.
there were more expenses, so we don't have as much money to pay the bills, while we're receiving income in.
Okay.
And it doesn't add to it, no.
Okay. And then I have a question for Dave, too. We've heard that the rate increase could potentially be postponed. And I was just wondering, what kind of effect would that have?
boy, I haven't even pondered that, but that would be a bad, bad scene. I mean, that would be defaulting on the bond payments. It would be not performing maintenance that we should be performing on our collection or our treatment system, potentially lead to failures at the plant for lack of putting resources into it. Those are potential problems. I probably have, if you're actually going to queue that up, I mean, right now, the rate increases are programmed. So what would need to happen in order to not increase them is to pass an ordinance saying that we're not going to have this rate increase. And at that point, we'd probably have more specifics for you, but there isn't any circumstances I can envision that they don't look pretty bad.
Okay, and that would take an act of the commission.
Yes.
Okay.
I guess to weigh in on this is that when we voted for these rate increases to come in at the 2% or whatever, 5% for 6 years or whatever, I was told very specifically that the main reason we had to do it, if we didn't, we would default on our loans. Well, here we have $400 and some thousand in a 2-year period that we're taking out of that fund, not for loans, but for a new sewer line. That's the problem I have, is I was told, main thing, and there may have been fine print, I wasn't around for every part of it, but so you have just said, well, if we don't do this, then we'll default on our loan. We're kind of going back a lot. If we got $500,000 on top of not defaulting on our loans, then what I'm doing is I'm not trusting the way our system is working here on that. The defaulting on a loan thing got me into trouble before, or I committed to something and now we got $400,000 we're pulling out of that fund that didn't go to the loan. But it's a new sewer line. It's not anything about maintenance or repair of existing. I don't think that's right. I feel that I literally helped sell the program to the people, and I was not, and I'm not saying this is intentional. I'm not saying anybody's intentionally, but we've gotten in the habit of doing the same thing over and over again, where we have these projects and we just do them. And we got projects and we do them. And we got projects. We got to do it for the future. Folks, we are borrowing from our reserves to break even this year. That's where we are. And we don't have much room after that. And I just don't want to continue to hoping someone's going to come and bail us out when we have a sewer line that isn't really, it's not on the waterfront. There is nobody that really is anxiously waiting to hook up to it. That's kind of where I am. It's kind of I just don't see it. I don't see the risk of that $400,000 or whatever versus where we are because we have run out of money here. So again, there's two sides to the story. You can do it, don't do it, but I'm just saying that I think we've lost some priorities. And a priority is the people who are living in these neighborhoods who are attempting to pay their water and sewer and garbage bills, which unfortunately has become one of their largest payments that they have to pay, and that they have spoken and they do want an ear. And I will entertain that. We need to look at that, hitting them with another raise. Other than defaulting on the loan thing, that one is not going over real well with me because we're pulling $400,000 out of something that was supposed to be so we didn't default on a loan. That's kind of my...
Actually, I would, based on my own look at the rate model, I think we're a little ahead of where we were, which is probably a good thing. You don't want to construct those rate models anyway, but conservatively so you don't get surprised. There is a projects that were programmed into the rate model that we talked about earlier, I&I projects. Assuming that you put this sewer line underneath the street, there will not be the money in the rate model to cover the projects that were contemplated, at least not yet. And so essentially, you don't have new money, maybe you have a little bit of new money, but if you spend it and you don't increase rates, and I'm reasonably confident that we're closer to this because it's easier to project short-term than it is long-term. I'm pretty sure we're going to be upside down, and you can ask Kathy that. So what we're talking about here is not entirely finding new money. What we're talking about is buying one thing instead of another thing instead of the thing that was programmed into the rate model. So.
Yep.
Yeah, that's the way I remember it, that we were never promised that this money ever went to just total debt recovery. It was capital projects, operations and maintenance, and everything that goes into the whole package of it. So we're not doing anything that we hadn't already planned to do with that money. You know, it was never dedicated strictly for debt repayment. That was built into the rate model, into the sewer rates. So to cut the sewer rates, I think would be an emergency. There you're talking about tipping it over, and I think that's very irresponsible.
Next. I don't know where we go from here, other than I respectfully disagreed with many people.
At this point, the contract has been awarded with the sewer line in the street. If the commission wants to change that, then we need policy direction from you to do that. 2 of you need to decide that you want to do that, or 3. But failing that, without a motion to the contrary, seconded and approved, will continue as we originally set out.
Which is at the moment $420,000.
408,000 plus whatever the final administrative cost. And we've been estimating that to be approximately 10% of the construction cost. We think it'll actually be slightly lower, but.
Yeah, Kathy, for the record, because we've been kicking around 420, 408, 470 or something like that. So let's.
Right. Conservatively, we budgeted over the 2 years $470,000.
All right. Okay.
So it is 470.
It's what we do, Your Honor, is there's the cost that we pay to the contractor, and then there's a cost that we actually use to pay engineering staff for oversight, so that we don't pull that out of the sewer fund. We pull it out of the project. Ultimately, it comes to the same place, but we can get it's the same dollars we'd have to pay them anyway. It's just accounted for differently. Sure.
So the project costs $470,000 over a 2-year period. Is that the number?
Yeah, Kathy, can you explain that to make sure we get this right?
Just to make sure, it's about $410,000 of new money. There's indirect costs that are associated with the project that would have to be paid out of that fund regardless of whether we had a project or not. We allocate those costs to a project because a lot of time is spent on the projects. So
Okay.
new money would be about $410,000.
And I'm just saying it's better to pull the plug on something than later on we're taking half of our reserves to push this thing down the road. It's just not the best timing. I mean, it's just when we start these things, things kind of escalate. When we started this, I don't even know that we had 2 mills that went out of town, and I don't know that we had any idea that we were going to have to draw $300,000 from our reserves. But I'm just telling you that in normal financial stuff, if it's a brand new sewer line running someplace, lots of times things happen, events happen where you have to hit the pause button, and that's where I am on it. Because at what point do we start hitting the pause button? 300,000 or whatever from our reserves would indicate we're getting close to hitting the pause button on, and so we'd have to pay the contractor something to get out of this contract. I guess that would be if we chose to go that route. So, Mr. O'Leary, do you have an idea? If we go to the contract, says we voted on it, but We changed our mind. So what would that entail?
So I assume you mean that you won't be able to find the votes to eliminate the project until after the first of the year.
I don't know.
Is that what we're talking about? Because,
Is everybody, are we ready to move forward with the 410,000? If we are, then I'm speaking to the wind. It doesn't matter what I say.
I'm kind of sensing that, I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm sensing that nobody's making any motions here to change.
Okay.
So,
And I can't make a motion, so I'm just speaking. Well, it's this commission's decision. I voiced my opinions on the financial condition of our city and why I would not do this.
I think you could make a motion as a three-member commission. Normally under Robert's rules, the chair would not make a motion. But with a three-member commission, I've seen the chair make a motion, like when there's two of you, you kind of have to do stuff like that. But
we're moving
if
forward,
somebody
I don't-
else doesn't second it, then you got the decision.
Moving forward, then there's no reason for me to make a motion. We will go forward with the $410,000 sewer line out Lake Boulevard, and then we will hope that some big business comes in within weeks and gives us a lot of money to help pay for this stuff. So that's, I don't know where the money's gonna come from. It's years out from what we've got laying on the table, and so I'm just trying to speak from a
I
financial
hate to
standpoint.
keep coming back, but when you say something that that can't work, I just got to say.
Absolutely.
A new business will not come in and bail out our sewer fund. I
won't.
can't imagine any circumstance
No.
under which that would happen. They would help our general fund, but we're just not going to see that kind of help from a new business.
Okay, so I've heard no motion. It looks like you got the marching orders to go ahead and do that project, from what I understand, and that's where we are. Okay, sounds good. Thank you for your time. All right, we have general public comment period. Anyone from the public would like to speak to anything on their mind, this is the opportunity. If not, then we have the last administration final touch. Mr. O'Leary, I'll direct this to you.
No touches tonight, Your Honor.
Okay. Our next meeting will be Monday, November 23rd at 2 p.m. I adjourn this meeting. Thank you.